Travon Walker is going to have a huge season. I'm going to tell you why I feel that way and give you some little news and notes, too, to try to help navigate. We'll do it in just a second on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is exactly what it is. It's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. I am the host, Tony Wiggins. You can find our Locked On Jaguars podcast over on our YouTube page. That is Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you head on over, hit that like button. Hit the like button, y'all. Please hit the like button. Hit subscribe, and also hit the bell so you get notifications each and every time we drop an episode. And then wherever you listen to your podcast, if you listen to audio podcasts, make sure you tap into that location as well every day so you do not miss an episode. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by FanDuel. That's right. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Shout out to the everydayers that join me here every single day on Locked On Jaguars. You can be an everydayer too. All you got to do is do the same and join us here every single day. All right, we're talking Travon today. We're going to end up telling you at the end of this show how Armstead lends a hand. What does that mean? He had some comments about Travon, but I heard Doug Peterson minutes ago at the presser say Armstead's been working with guys one-on-one and talking to them and showing a lot of leadership. Mentioned also that Travon is going to be counted on to be a young leader, and we'll attempt to discuss that too and blend that into the fact that in segment 2, we're going to say, I don't think there's a big addition that's needed. A lot of people are talking about Hendrickson and all of these dudes and any pass rusher that has a big name, but doesn't really work like that. Those guys want to get paid, and those guys also want to play. I don't think the Jaguars need any of that. And the reason why I believe that way, because I think Travon Walker will continue to rise to different and new heights in 2024 and have a huge season for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he's going to be considered for those all whatever teams at the end of the season also. What makes me think that? All right, so normally, I'll give you a little housekeeping. Normally, I look for stories when I see players, right? I develop my own opinion of them just by watching them, listening to them talk, hanging around them, whenever I get the chance to. But mainly, I read their stories and I look at them and see where they come from. I play them in college, and I watch them play in college, and I look at them because I'm a draftnik. That's what I do. But I also go all the way back to high school recruiting because I do that too. It's one of my things. I don't cover it professionally, but it's one of the things I absolutely enjoy more than anything, right? I got some weird things that I look at and pay attention to, and I'll hip y'all up to some of them. I watch videos of super yachts. And even though I bought a house, I still watch house videos and construction videos. I've been doing it for 40 years. It's just I get in my own little lane, and I just think it just kind of broadens my horizons a little bit. Something else I always do when I notice guys, young men with certain characteristics, I always want to know where it came from. For me, mine came from my grandmother, other than what I inherited, the sense of humor, not taking myself too seriously, being conscientious of other people, but then having no fear. I get that all from a 4'11" lady that raised me named Lucille. And anybody that knows me will tell you that. Anybody that knows me, that knows her, knows I was always, they called her Willie Grace. I was Willie Grace's boy, right? And even the hustlers who knew my grandmother, who feared her, would tell me to go home if it was too late. I had a chance to meet somebody, family members of Travon Walker. And let me tell you something. That's about as much as I'm going to say about that, by the way, because they're very, very nice people, and they don't ask to be included in stuff like this. But I always want to know where it comes from. And boy, did he not he didn't fall far from the tree. Mama and pops. Okay. Travon Walker is the real deal. When you hear Doug Peterson today, someone asked him how Travon had done in the offseason, and Travon, he said, man, wow. I'm telling you, go back and look at it. Go to the Jaguars page on YouTube or the Jaguars.com and see if you can pull that question up. It was I think it may have been the last question asked what kind of offseason Travon has had. And you heard her. Wow, man. And that's the way I've always felt about him. That's the way that I heard people in college felt about him. I heard through some very, very good connections that the opposing team's coaches have always said those things about him. So it did not surprise me. And anyone that follows this podcast knows it did not surprise me that he went number one. I was in it 2 or 3 months before the draft. I said, I'm hearing this pick up steam. And there were a lot of people that I really, really trust and like. They were like, man, that's just not somebody I'd use a number one on. I'm saying, yeah, but this is a little bit different, right? I hope 2023 gave folks a glimpse of what that thing is. And the thing is that the Jaguars and credibly Trent Baalke had the nerve, the chest to say, you know what, I'm not going for the obvious. Because Aiden Hutchinson has been really, really good for the Detroit Lions. He has. He has done the thing that most people wanted Aiden Hutchinson to do and what the Jaguars and the Lions both needed at the time. Travon Walker had a really, really good year. I had somebody tell me that was actually in that building last year that he could have had 15 or 16 sacks. They barely got away. So I'm going to tell you in segment 2, why, before I start getting into why a big addition isn't needed, I'm going to tell you why I believe he's going to get those 15 sacks this year. Yeah, I said it, 15, and I hope I ain't putting a root on him or jinx on him, but this is just the way I feel, and I feel this way about him because when you hear people speak on him and those adjectives, it's always the same things that once the conversation gets extended. And this is what I learned by my brief and very brief interaction with his family, who were gracious enough to spend maybe half an hour with me at one point. That's what they are. It's hard work, head down. Kind of, I get sort of a mind your business feel about take care of your business and everything gonna take care of itself. Get the job done, stay humble, show up, professional, but also alpha, very alpha. Knows who they are, knows what it's gonna be. When Travon told me last year during camp, nah, man, I ain't never going outside of the system. I got to do my job. It told me a lot about him because at that time, everyone wanted them to turn him loose a little bit more and so he could get more sacks instead of having them drop back and cover it so much. And I asked him about it. He said, no. And see, that's what you need in your young players. And this is what's going to help him become that leader that Doug Peterson talked about, and we'll discuss that a little bit more. What's actually going to help him is this. As all have done who have gone this way before me, if I can do my job after being the number one pick, hearing all of this foolishness, but I kept my earmuffs on and I just kept doing my job, well, little rookie, you can do the same thing. This is how we're going to move. And you get a team full of guys like that are accountable, that show up early, that are always there, that are always in shape, that are hungry, that are just trying to be a sponge for knowledge to get better. You get coaches like that, and then you get players like that helping the ones who aren't like that, and that's when you start shaking the room and you start elevating. He is a big, strong, he is the physical specimen. Like you might have Armstead that's bigger, Roy Robertson Harris might be bigger. We know Devon Hamilton's bigger. We know Mason Smith and those dudes that just got in the draft this year are bigger. I'm not talking about big that way. I'm talking about big as in big. Now, he's a big man. Don't get it twisted. But what I'm talking about big is just being big, being everyday big. And everyday big is like that dad that just goes to work every day and always comes home with the bread and always comes home with the milk. And he always comes home with the utility money. No matter how tired he is, he gets up the next day and he goes right back to work. And so I see that workman with a lot of talent, with long arms, with a nasty streak in him. And now we're going to hook him up with Ryan Nielsen that's going to extract and bring all of that stuff out of him. Ryan Nielsen has done that a lot with a lot of players. Some of them people are trying to trade for. I'm going to tell you why the Jaguars don't need to be trading for nobody with a big name. They already got enough guys to play the edge. You can always get more, but I wouldn't go looking for dangling carrots and giving away draft picks and giving away a bunch of money because I think because Travon's going to make that leap, they already got what they need. We're going to get into that and more in segment 2 on Locked On Jaguars when I tell you exactly why the Jaguars should not be going out here chasing any big name free agents at the edge position. I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. As I told you, today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. Listen, summertime means baseball. That's right, hot dogs and all of that stuff at the park, hearing those bats crack those balls. I'm telling you, man, and the NBA Finals, well, maybe two more games at the very least, maybe 5, but so you got to get in on it right away. And you can bet all day on all of that stuff on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200. Now, listen, $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use on everything, to bet on everything from the finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park in baseball. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. New customers, $200 in bonus bets. Get on over to FanDuel and holler at them right now. All right, second segment here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. We're grateful to have you here on this beautiful, beautiful Monday in Jacksonville, Florida. Happy birthday to my grandson, Kool-Aid, man. He turned Saturday, he turned 1. And let me tell you something. I hung out with him this weekend, and it's amazing, man. It's amazing. My son is doing a really good job. My son and his fiance are doing a really, really good job of raising him. And I just wanted to share some of that joy with me. We humanize this thing a little bit because I'm giving everybody else praise for how they do with their kids. So I thought I'd just take a moment and share that with me. If you see me on social media, you'll see me and Kool-Aid took a couple of pictures together. And he loves his granddad. Even if some of y'all don't all the time, that's all right. I don't expect it. And all I do is just try to give you the knowledge and the things and the feelings that I have. I won't make you feel good today because I'm talking about Travon Walker. Travon Walker is going to take another step. He took a huge step last year. I think he's going to take another big step this year, and you're going to start seeing him get recognition and being listed on these lists of edges. And I think if he does this, I do believe Josh is going to be Josh. Doesn't mean he's going to get 17 sacks. Every single year, because we know he's been here for 5 years. He only had 2 years where he had double digits. So, but I do think he's still going to be the same player because just like Travon Walker, he has that gene that I'm talking about, and that gene is hard work, dedication, getting it done, focusing on the things that you need to focus on. And I wish more young players do it. And I'm not going to get on my soapbox about that right now because I love these young brothers. But my thing is, you got your whole life to party, man. You got your whole life to party like a rock star. Even if you want to do it every now and then, I get it. Trust me. When your boy was something else back in the day, right? But just like I always had those people I mentioned, my grandmother said, go home. I think in today's world, we kind of lost that a little bit. But I love it when you have players that are like that. Hey, go home, man. Come here. Go home. Just for 10 years, from the time you're 21 to the time you're 31, man, I think if these players learn how to just put that work in and have the personality of some of their peers, they'll set themselves up so they can party for the rest of their life after they're 33 years old or 34 years old. And they might get a yellow jacket and might get some hardware to go along with it and a whole lot of money. So I just think I just love celebrating dudes that know when to do what you're supposed to do. And one person I wholeheartedly believe that about is young Travon Walker out of University of Georgia and right up the road here in Thomaston, Georgia. I'm really, really, really thinking that he's going to have a big year. One of the things that they've done is go out and get a lot more help, a lot more physical, big football players along that line of scrimmage. The main thing I think they've done, though, is they've seen the blue sky with him, and they're going to run a system, I think, that's going to help the rest of it. And the rest of it is, by design, make some things easier. Well, by design, put him in certain positions and have him understand exactly what it is he's going to do. And that's all on Ryan Nielsen. Ryan Nielsen has a track record of working with guys like Hendrickson that I'm mentioning from the Bengals. Let me pull his name up because I always say Hendrickson and Fredrickson. But Also over in New Orleans with Cam Jordan. Guys like that. He's always, if you think about Sheldon Rankins is an interior player, but he had Trey Hendrickson. Sheldon is another player, and all of these dudes were in New Orleans. They have had their best seasons under the defense coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, who was the defensive line coach by trade. I like the fact that the defense coordinator is a line coach, is a guy that understands that, because sometimes I think it gives you a little bit better. It's like having a coach that used to be a quarterback with Doug Peterson. I think it adds a little bit of layer to the guys that actually played the position that the coordinator plays, because that's the base and the foundation of where his knowledge came from, which was the position where he ran things by trade. There's some talk that Trey Hendrickson may be available for the right price. I think it'd be a mistake. Now I want you to hear me. I think he's a good player. I really do. I think guys like Travon get better as they get more juiced up. And I don't know if you want to overly rotate those dudes. I know there's certain things to keep them fresh and all of this stuff. I think that's what Eric Armstead's for. Armstead's going to play inside. And if you watch his tape from the 49ers, he actually played a lot of big end. He played like Calais Campbell played when he was here with Jacksonville in 2017 and 18. That's what he did. He's the same type of dude, and you can move guys around to mismatch and take advantage of certain matchups. I anticipate what you're going to see, though, is you're going to see all these dudes on the field at one time. I think for the most part, when it comes down to it, you'll probably see either Mason Smith or Roy Robertson Harris next to Eric Armstead inside, with Josh Allen on one side and Travon on the other. I think you're going to probably see that a whole lot more than you can imagine. I also believe that if Devon Hamilton is healthy this year, that you're going to see the old Devon Hamilton, which is the dude that, even though he's 6'4", 335 pounds, can really, really rush the passer from the interior. A lot of it depends on first down, but this is why I say it's not needed. I know you can never have too many rush. Doug Peterson mentioned it earlier. You can't ever have too many big guys. That doesn't mean that you need to go out dangling carrots and try to trade and pay a guy $31 million over the next 2 years to be a rotational player. I mean, you think Trey Hendrickson wants to come here and sit? And you can mess your locker room up a little bit, man. Go back and ask people, or, you know, we've talked about it, but go back and ask people why you saw Yannick Ngakoue and those guys on the field angry. And Malik Jackson and Calais Campbell and even Dante Fowler before he left. Those dudes thought they were supposed to be playing. And it got worse when they brought Taven Bryan in, because they were forcing Taven Bryan into the lineup, and that's where the blow-up came. I think if you find one, I think if you get one in the draft, what they really need to do is they need that kid that they drafted late, that Cole kid out of Texas Tech. That's the one that they need. They need him to play well. They need him to play well. I mean, if you start getting production, and we've discussed this ad nauseum, if you start getting production out of these late round picks, and they could be just situational players for you this year and help you in a rotational capacity. And then what you can start saying is, hey, man, this is what we can do. We can eventually see down the road where, when somebody starts to make too much money, we have a guy who right here is a cheap replacement for him. That's absolutely the truth. Miles Cole, that's my man's name, Miles Cole. And you just really, really, really have to have guys like this work out. He's 6'6", 278. He's raw. He has a lot of potential, but he also has, he has a little bit of a ways to go. I'm not saying that he's better for the Jaguars than Trey Hendrickson. I don't want nobody to sit here and put that in my mouth. That is not what I said. But at some point, you can't keep spending money and using resources just to sort of, I guess for a lack of a better term, is just to sort of hedge your bets. You don't have to hedge bets with Travon and Josh Allen. Now, if you get to the trade deadline and you're trying to make a run and you want to do what the 49ers did yesterday and go after Trey Young, or not Trey Young, the young kid that they got out of Washington, the former #1 pick out of Ohio State, Trey Young, gonna shoot some jump shots. He ain't gonna be sacking nobody. But if you want to do that, that's fine because you're going after it. The 49ers have been in a different situation. If you're Philly and you want to trade for that extra, you're talking about teams that have been in the Super Bowl over the last 5 years or 5 or 6 years. The team, Philly won it and went back and lost one. The 49ers have lost 2 to the Chiefs in about 5 or 6 years. So the thing is those teams' window and what they're trying to do when they trade some for a guy for half a year. Like if the Jaguars had told Minnesota, okay, man, look, Daniil Hunter ain't staying with y'all. Look, let us go ahead and give you let me give you a 4th rounder for these next 6-7 games. I could understand them doing that. I really could, but that's his bonuses and all of that have been paid by the other team. Now you're only paying for half a year, and then you make a decision at the end of the season. That is totally different than already having a year and then going out and getting another dude to come in here. And at some point, you can have a little bit of an overkill at that position. I'm going to talk more about that in just a second as we also talk about the addition of Arik Armstead and how he was going to lend a hand and really, really help Travon be able to take that next step and move forward. But if you're watching Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day and have to turn down the volume with all the shouting, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Arik Armstead's impact, I think, will be twofold in helping Travon Walker really, really, really take the next step. And Arik Armstead had something to say about that, where I think he believes Travon's going to be really, really good too. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen, talking to Travon Walker, and me thinking that Travon Walker is going to become a household name for all the right reasons this season with the Jacksonville Jaguars. By the way, y'all know if this happens, this little scenario that I'm bringing up, y'all know if this goes this way, that means this season is going really, really well, because that means that they're getting after the quarterback and they're not sitting there having to worry about the run all day, because teams will be behind. The offense is going to play better, and teams will be behind and they'll be predictable. And once teams get behind and they're more predictable, guess what that means? That means that you can get after them and start junking up the front seven and have a whole bunch of guys just constantly running at the quarterback. And we ain't never discussed that, a lot of that with the Jags, when we say, how come this guy doesn't have these numbers and this number? The Jaguars offense the last 2 years, even when they were 8-3 last year, we all said the defense was carrying them. The offense was stink. They couldn't keep the ball. It seemed like they never really won time possession. They had too many 3-and-outs. And it just, if they could ever get to the point where they control the football, or even if they score quickly, but they get out to big leagues and force teams to have to drop back, play after play after play. Offensive linemen love running the ball all day. Defensive linemen love when the other team passes the ball. It gives you more and more opportunities, and when that ball is in the air, that is the time when that ball belongs to anybody. And the defense has just as much right to it as the offense. Kind of that way when they run too, but then you got to do safeguarding the ball. That ball is vulnerable when it's in the air. It is vulnerable when a quarterback's standing back there holding it with one hand while he's trying to look around. That's the time when guys like Travon can eat and do work. Arik Armstead, I ain't got the quote here, but he came out and said that he believes Travon Walker can be the best edge in the league. A teammate is supposed to hype up his guys. A teammate is supposed to have very good compliments and glowing compliments for their compadres. And that's fine. I don't think that's why Arik said that. I think Arik came in there and saw Travon, and he's been around the league a long time, and he said, that don't look like a whole bunch of people. That dude looks like one of the Avengers. And I think by being around him, he said, okay, he looks like that. Then he saw him working. And he said, and if you've ever been to a Jaguars practice, Travon Walker goes hard all the time. And I can only imagine what it's like in the weight room. I can only imagine what his R is when it's time to get down to business. I already told you how I felt about what type of person he is and the reason why he's that way. So what I'm saying now is I think a veteran of this NFL that has played at the highest of highest levels, he sees it and he recognizes it. He probably can't explain it, but he knows what it is when he sees it. And you know what I'm talking about. And you're like, yep, that's it. It's one thing to be talented. It's another thing to work hard, but it's another thing to be a hardworking, talented person. And I think the sky is the absolute limit. Now, it'll be the things around that'll help. It'll help because I want Travon. Travon is like, he does a lot of heavy lifting. He does a lot of heavy lifting that you guys don't notice. That's why Mike Tomlin singled him out in the press conference last year. He said he wreaked havoc. He's a wrecking ball. He wreaks havoc. And fans, right, wrong, or indifferent, and I get it because I'm one, they want to see sacks and crazy spin moves and dances. And I get it. I understand it's exciting. But there are a lot of things that go on that football coaches see on tape and they go, wow, man, he does a lot of things that hides a lot of other stuff, helps linebackers be able to run. I bet if you go ask Foye Oluwakan, he'll tell you right now, Travon has cleared things up for him a whole bunch. I bet if you ask anybody that stuff. But when you get better at every other position, all of that heavy lifting that he does for himself and for other people, now it ain't heavy no more. What it is it's extra stuff now. Now it's like somebody just giving you an extra ribeye for free. Now it's, oh, really? Yeah. And that's why I think statistically the numbers are going to get better because it's going to be a combination of scheme and it's going to be a combination of having better teammates. And when you have that, now all of that extra he had to do because other people weren't getting it done, now all of that just becomes house money. And house money turns into sacks, which turns into money that you can have in your house. You feel me? And I think Travon Walker is going to have a big year. I think having another leadership player like Eric Armstead there, in addition to Josh Allen, now your three best players are your three best leaders in those particular positions. And they can tutor the young kids out of LSU that got picked. They can tutor the other young guys like Mr. Cole, I just mentioned, out of Texas Tech. But the main thing they're going to do is they're going to lead by example. And that's what guys like that do. They lead by example. They'll talk, but mainly what you're going to see if you're a rookie or a young player, I would say watch Josh Allen. He just got $100 and some odd million, but just watch him. You'll see why he got that. And I'll say watch Travon Walker. I know he's the first overall pick and everybody ain't built like that. But even if you're not built like that, you can still work like that. And if you're not built like that, you need to be working twice as hard as what you see him do because you ain't him. This is where iron sharpens iron. This is that next step. Mark my word, Travon Walker will be one of those guys around the league that everyone says was worth that number one pick. And man, they're going to give Trent Baalke credit for having the courage and the guts to make a pick that a lot of people criticize. You got that right. Ain't nobody criticizing me, man, because I am the host of the Locked On Jaguars. Well, I am getting criticized, but I'm not getting criticized for what I'm about to tell you, that we've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. We're gonna have some Fire TV on here for you tomorrow on Locked On Jaguars. We're going most of the veterans and most of those older cats, the OTAs went so good and the mini camps went so good. Doug kind of excused them this week. I was actually supposed to go out on my Achilles flared up again. I was going to limp on out there, but since it's only young guys, what I decided to do was just come and focus on some of the guys that are not there. And that's why I talked about Travon today, because he was one of the people I requested to speak to, and the PR staff told me he probably wasn't going to be there. So I will be here all week giving you everything you want to know about the minicamp, OTAs, or as Doug Peterson calls it, whatever you call it, because there's guys in the building putting work in. All right, we'll talk about that for the rest of the week. and get you ready, start getting you primed and getting you pumped up for everything that is going to happen in training camp. And then also take a look and see if the Jaguars decide that they're going to go into the vet market for certain positions and where it could be. We'll talk about that this coming week and maybe even tomorrow here on Locked On Jaguars. Until then, you guys take care of yourself, and I'll do the same.